In this episode, we're talking about the handsy horror card battler Out of Hands. This and more indie game discussions on Indie Game Arcade. Welcome everyone to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast that deep dives into the latest and greatest indie games. My name is Chris. I am your host today because guess what? I lied to you last week when I said, hey, guess what? Joseph will be back. He's not back yet. You know why? When he moved, it turns out the apartment he moved into was right by a very, very busy road. And it was too loud. So he had to go to the folks at his apartment complex and say, hey, you got any other units available for me that are, right next to the busiest highway ever created? And they're like, yes, we do. But you can't move into it until next weekend. So guess what he's doing right now while I'm recording this? He is moving again. Twice in the last 3 weeks, he has moved. So while he gets settled into his new abode and hopefully the final abode for a while at least, I'll be hanging out with you here talking about some indie games. And the one I'm going to talk about today is one that was sent to us by the publisher. However, this was one that was already on our docket as one that we were going to cover anyway. Preface real quick. We did not get paid for this to talk about this. But you know what though? If you do want to pay us to talk about a game, maybe we can work something out. I would love to be sponsored by somebody. Anyone? So let's go ahead and talk about it. This is Out of Hands.
Game start!
So Out of Hands was released on April 22nd, 2025, developed by Game River and published by Lightning Games. I guess it was the developer that reached out. For some reason, I kept thinking it was the publisher, but it was the developer. Gwen from Game River reached out to me. Anyway, price is $17.99, so not a bad price point for the size of game you get on here. And for a quick description, you are playing as a character with a fragmented memory of let's not say fragmented memory, it's more like fragmented memories, plural, of a woman who is no longer part of your life, and you don't remember why, you don't remember a lot of pieces of your life. Your face and your body is wrapped in gauze, and you are dreaming each night, or maybe it's not even dreaming at this point, it's really just nightmares each night, that you are made entirely of hands as you are wandering through your own distorted memories and your mindscape, battling against apparitions and negative emotions, like these manifestations of these negative emotions and these broken memories and stuff in your head, so that you can try to restore your sanity. Now, if that sounds crazy, it feels like it as you're playing it. Like the second you jump in and start playing this game, it feels so weird. It feels I don't even know how to describe the first few minutes playing this game. Unsettling is the best word I think I can use, and probably a word that we're going to be coming back to quite a bit. But the main thing you're probably asking, okay, well, what kind of game is this? And I'm going to throw a couple keywords at you here, but the big one is Deckbuilder card battler. So that's the main crux of the mechanics and everything. But psychological horror is the subgenre that we're talking about here. So as far as gameplay mechanics, we are building up our deck. We are battling against these things using cards that we are collecting, and it is slightly horrifying in a very psychological way, and it goes very, very deep into the psychology of everything, but in one of those ways where at the surface level, as you were playing this, you know that this is like deep psychologically heavy stuff. But for someone that's more familiar with psychology, and like I say this as someone that like originally was going to major in psychology when I was going through college, and who decided, nope, not the route for me, but married a person who is very deep into that world. You see things within this game that you kind of start recognizing some very deep trauma things in here. So like if you are someone that's like into psychology, I think there's like even more here for you than if you weren't. And that's not to say that you have to be into psychology and trauma and things like that to enjoy this game. You don't have to at all. It's just kind of like one of those things that it added a little bit of extra intrigue for me personally, because that's like, you know, a world that I'm interested in. But let's talk about the main point of the game, which is the mechanics, the deck building aspect. So you are, let me explain you yourself, I guess, because when you go into this world, like I said, you are made out of hands. That is the weirdest sentence I think I've said in a long time. And you were looking at like a portrait of yourself, and literally you were seeing, instead of eyes, a nose, and mouth, you were seeing hands. These hands like over the place of your eyes, making like these kind of gestures. Same for your nose, same for your mouth. And this is a very mixed media presenting game. So like everything, especially with like the eyes, the nose, the mouth, stuff like that, they are like, look like Polaroid style photos laid over, let's say, like a face, right? Like an image of a face. But the hands with, God, again, with the ongoing trend that I always pick the games that are the hardest to describe. Okay, so these Polaroid photos of the hands aren't actually like photos. It's actually video within those. And that's like how they capture the animation of this game. So like the hands are always moving. So like it's so creepy to look at. I really, really urge you to, as I'm talking about this, if you have the availability, to look this game up or look up some images real quick so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's so bizarre. But anyway, so you were literally made out of hands. All right. When you go into a battle, and there's more to it than just battles, but stick with me here because this is going to take a little while to get through. When you go into a battle, it displays your heart, which is going to be representative of your HP. That heart is also a hand, of course. And then you see a right and a left hand as well. And so you don't have like a deck of cards per se, like going along the bottom in a Slay the Spire kind of style. It's just a right hand, a left hand, and your heart hand. Oh, God. All right. And then you're against, let's say, your enemy, which could be some sort of negative emotion or fragmented memory or something bizarre. It could even say like foggy street lamp. And like that is something you could go against. Like I think that was literally one of the things I fought against. Anyways, so they will have like their own health, their own like attack. They have like minions that attack for them. Like the thing that you fight against is kind of in a back line. And then they summon these frontline cards that will do damage. Some of them right away. Some of them are like ones that build up and develop over the next turn and do more damage. And you usually have to take out the cards in the front line before you can attack a card in the back line. And those backline cards typically have multiple lives where like you'll have to take their HP all the way down, and then their HP will go all the way back up in the next round, and you have to do it all over again. What's like nice about some of that though is like if you have, there's like certain cards you can get that can bypass that front line and hit that back line. And if you do that and you take their HP down, like it will essentially wipe out like all of those frontline guys for you. So there's like ways to mitigate all this stuff. There's a lot of really good mechanics to this, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this game. But let's get back to what you can do. So since you don't have your own cards, like your own deck of cards in front of you, what you do get is like a random, you do have a card deck, but each round or each turn, it just picks 3 cards from your deck and it puts them to the right. And you take one of your 2 hands and you reach over and grab a card. And those are going to be like either weapons or shields or some sort of like healing items or buffing items, things like that. And in this game, they're all like themed around mixed media-esque things, like stuff you would use to manipulate actual physical mixed media, like an ink pen, a ruler, an eraser, an ink bottle. When you see it, it makes a little bit more sense because this is a very bizarre thing. And it really is going through that like idea of this is a mixed media art game. So reaching and selecting an item is what uses up your energy. So if you're familiar with deck builders, card battlers, you know, there's almost always like an energy limit of like 3, right? We go back to games like Slay the Spire. That's usually the case. So selecting that's what costs an energy. So you could select, let's say an ink pen. But what's nice about that too is some of those, especially I think it's the ink pen, almost every time when you get it, there's like 2 cards stacked on top of each other there. So like you could get 2 attacks off with that ink pen, and that doesn't cost you extra damage. So like using the item costs you no energy. It's just selecting the item that costs you the energy. And I think that is a really interesting system, and I really, really enjoyed that. And also like you can hold on to whatever you grab and like wait till the next turn. There's a lot you can do in this game to sort of like plan ahead. And especially for like, if you get 3 cards and it's really like, wow, this isn't gonna help me very much in this round, you can really just plan for the next round. Especially if you have cards with like buffs, like there will be opportunities to purchase potions and other things to build up some of your attacks later on, like a ranged attack, which will bypass the front line and go, attack straight to the back line, like the big guys that you're going against. You can get like a potion that will add like +2 or +3 to those. So if there's really like, you don't have a good weapon, but you've got one of those, just concentrate on that. And each time you grab one of those, like that card slot isn't expended, like a new card will pop up. Like you'll still have 3 to choose from each time, no matter what. So you can really like build those up, and all those effects will stack as well. So if you stack like a whole bunch of those, you could like just go straight for that back line per se, like in this example, take something out real quick and not have to worry about all the minions on the front line that are going to do you damage. But like it does get really, really hectic because some of these things will summon multiple minions that will do a lot of damage. Now, some of them, there are a lot of like attacks that you can get. And I'm trying to remember what they're cups. Like you can get like a plastic cup card that will like do damage where you do like 1 damage or 2 or 3 damage to 3 enemies, like a left, a middle, and a right. In the way that, like, if you think of like the Mantis God card from Inscription, if you're familiar with Inscription, anyways, you can get a potion that builds that up too. That helps mitigate some of those minions. However, like those minions can build up really, really fast. Especially if you get a backline that has like 3 or 4 cards, like you get into a boss battle, of which there are plenty of boss battles. Some of those boss battles will summon more backline cards, which in turn will summon more minions. So like I had a few battles where the front line had maybe 10 or more minions at once. And if all of those are doing like 2 or more damage, and the max health you have is like 14, that's going to add up really quick. Like in one turn, you could be gone. So you really, really have to think critically about everything. There are other cards aside from attacks, like I said, and, the buffs. There is like a shield that you can get that can mitigate like 10 damage until it's used up. There are cards like gauze and other like first aid kind of cards that will give you some health back. You also have this item to the left. It's called a mirror. That's where you're kind of looking at yourself. You can see yourself there, which is, it's just hands. It's just a bunch of hands in your portrait. But that mirror will have a specific ability where like every few turns, because it has a cooldown, you can use that to do something. And I think the default state for that when you first start the game is like it can heal, I think maybe it's like 3 health or something. If that is allowed to replenish, then you've got a little bit of a health pool to like bring back and everything. But that can change. You can change that mirror to do something else. I'm going to talk about those upgrades in just a second. But I want to talk more about those enemies really quick because the enemies will follow, like there is a linear story to this. And those enemies are usually representative of what's happening during this part of the story. And even though it is a linear story, you don't have to follow it linearly. Like you can do whatever you want, really. It does give you a little bit of an overworld kind of exploratory map that you can do. Now, this isn't like a 3D space that you can move around in, but they give you sort of an idea of picture a little bit of a map with like different points of interest that you would be able to click on, and your character can go there. But some of those points are obscured in like black. If you are familiar with playing like Dungeons and Dragons or something, and you've ever played online, think of like the idea of the fog of war. Some of that stuff is sort of shrouded in fog of war. You will have to go to certain points and explore those points before you can like move farther into this map or these levels. So you'll have to do a little bit of exploring. You might uncover vending machines where you can purchase more cards. You might uncover like a merchant who can sell you some upgrades, or you might uncover some battles, all kinds of different stuff. So there's like a lot of things around that you can do to not play this in a linear fashion, even though the story, again, like I said, does have a linear premise, really, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. There's like, I think specifically, this is semi-early in the game, there's like this very specific apparition that you meet that is taking on the form of like it was like a stag or an elk or something, and you'll like run into it at a certain point, and you get it so far down, and then it's gonna like flee during like the boss battle that you have with it. It'll like run away. And then it's kind of like you can move to different points and explore at your own will. But it's like very obvious that the main point of that part of the story is to track down this and like keep pursuing it until you can really pin it down and finish it off. But it's like there's so many other points that you can explore that you could spend probably another hour or more in just that level alone or that map without ever running back into that thing again. So there's just a lot that you can do, and it's very interesting. And there's also some environmental puzzle solving too, because there's like parts of the map that I ran into, like I think there's like a school building or something, and like I'll get to this door and I go to that point and I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go through here and explore that. And it's like, nope, I need a key card to get in here. So I'm like, all right, how do I find that key card? And eventually it was like, I got to this one battle and I ended up getting the key card after this battle. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I can go back towards this school. And I'm like, okay, what is hidden in there that I had to fight a boss? If like the boss is what lets me unlock this school, then what's in there, you know? So it's very interesting. And I was really enjoying the idea that it wasn't really hand-holding me. Like I didn't feel like it was on rails, but that I was still able to follow this story. Anyway, let's talk about the upgrades and everything, because I talked about the mirror, but you can get like organ upgrades. So when I talked about like your eyes, your mouth, your nose, they're still made of hands. But there are upgrades that you can get where you swap out those hands for different hands that make up your eyes, your nose, your mouth, that will have different abilities. But there's always like a cost, and that cost is usually sacrificing something like some of your max HP or something. But it might give you like a really, really powerful passive bonus or an extra action that will like increase damage for all of a certain kind of attack. Like all of your ranged attacks now do like +3 damage or something, at the expense of you lose 2 max damage or 3 max damage, or HP. So there's like different things like that you can upgrade. And again, like that mirror is something you can upgrade as well. So instead of doing like the heal, that is that's usually comes with one of those action points. There's always like a pro and a con to every upgrade. And I do like that about this game, as well as this other thing I'm going to talk about, which I think is very fascinating, which is the danger level. So like when you first start this game, there is like this danger kind of meter, and it starts out like low, like a low risk. But the farther you progress and like the more enemies you defeat, the danger level begins to increase, which means the enemies get harder and harder. There's like things that you can do to try and reduce that danger level back down. Like it almost in a way reminds me of like when you play like Darkest Dungeon or something, and you just decide to fight in the dark. And if you've played that game, you know how that affects your characters. It makes it super, super hard because your characters are prone to missing more, or just not even wanting to fight at all because they're like just terrified. So it is like purposely making the game tougher for you to do that. In this, it's like the game automatically just becomes harder as you progress, but it didn't get like overwhelming. I did like a Let's Play of about like an hour and a half that's available. And then I played for about another hour and change. And I think I am like, with the danger level, I think I'm like 2 from the very, very top. And I don't think I got to a point where I felt completely overwhelmed yet. But I definitely have gotten into a couple battles where I was really sweating it. And I'm like, man, I have to be on my toes and be really alert, because if I make a single mistake, I'm going to get wiped out. And I remember, and I think this was even in the Let's Play that you can watch, there was like one specific battle where I was like looking at the amount of minions that were out, and I was looking at my HP, and I was like, okay, I was about to do something and realized if I make that move, it's game over and I will lose. So it's one of those where you just have to be like super, super vigilant and think really, really hard about each move you want to do, which are the best kinds of like card battlers and stuff. Like if you like strategy, this is a game that really leans hard into strategy. It kind of does this thing where it creates a gap of things being too easy for you. So like if you were like blowing through enemies in the first like hour or so, eventually you're going to get to a point where it's like, okay, that's not going to happen anymore because of that difficulty progression. And again, like I said, there are things that the game will do to let you mitigate that, but those have to be earned as well to make that go down, and sacrifices will have to be made to do that as well. I think there was a point that I got to that would have, there was some choice I got where I could either pick, I think it was a certain upgrade or card, or I could choose to bring the difficulty down a level. But I think I chose the upgrade, because I was like, you know what, I want to keep the difficulty where it is. So there's that. There's also like at the very beginning when you start the game, you can choose like an easy or a normal mode. as well, like, almost any game. I just chose normal. I like the variability that this game has with the difficulty. I think the amount that it changes makes it so dynamic and interesting that way. So with all of that said, all of those mechanics, there's one more mechanic in this, and that is alignment. There are 3 alignments that you can fall into, which is logic, mystery, and action. And all 3 of these 2, weirdly enough, are aspects of your own psyche that are also talking to you as the player throughout the entire game. They'll talk to you a whole lot in the very beginning, and they're kind of trying to, sort of like influence you a certain way. And then you will get presented with things, typically after like a boss battle, of like, you can take one of these certain cards, or you can choose one of these 3 options. Choosing one of those will align you more with one of those categories. And just because of my play style, the way I like to go, I tended to align more with action. So that's where I started going. That was like more of like the higher damage. And also, I remember it gave me a card that allowed for like bleed. And I love when a game, especially a deck builder, gives you the ability to do like a bleed build. And especially like when, I think after that battle, that was a battle where like the backline had a huge amount of health, like way more than any of the others had, where like I had been fighting things that were doing like 13 HP in the backline or 20 HP in the backline. And this one all of a sudden was like 40 or 50. And I'm like, all right, I think I need that bleed damage. So I'm going to take that. So when you start like going towards those different alignments, like you'll start getting different perks, different upgrades that align more with those characteristics. I'm not sure, but I kind of wonder if like those will start to influence you more and pull you in certain directions and like maybe shape how certain parts of the game or certain parts of sort of like mystery of like unraveling your psyche. I'm wondering, because I don't know for sure, if it's going to color that a certain way, like if action is going to make certain things a little bit more blunt than mystery or logic. Like maybe logic would give you a little bit more of a clearer picture, but you wouldn't pursue things as quickly within the narrative. I don't know, but I like the idea that this exists. Talking about kind of the progression and flow of the game, as I said, you can kind of do it non-linearly, even though there is a linear story. I'm going to stop saying those things because I've said it so many times, but like the more that you explore into a certain level, the more you're going to start to unravel these like specific memories. So like you keep pulling at a certain thread, like you keep going after that stag, then the more you're going to progress towards figuring out like what memory this is tied to. I talked about a little bit that there's something to do with like a woman. So like pulling on that thread like gave me a memory of a certain item. And I don't want to say what it is because I really want people to play this game. But like getting a certain memory of that item like really presented me with like a couple ideas of, okay, that gives me an idea of maybe what kind of person this was in relation to us. But 2, it also opened up a whole lot of questions for me as to the nature of it. So I'm like, oh man, it just made it all the more intriguing. And now I've got like multiple questions of my own that have made me want to play this game longer and pursue this, like the memory of this thing even more. So it's like one thing led to another, will lead to another. And on top of that, there's like other stuff that I haven't explored yet. Like, what is this school? What's going to lead me through here? What am I going to find now that I have this key card? So there's like so much stuff to find, and it's just fascinating. And there's a lot of levels to this game as well. So very, very fascinating stuff. And the art, again, absolutely insane. It is really like just a mixed collage. Like if you have ever looked at collage artwork of like somebody making something out of like clippings out of a magazine or something, that is kind of what to expect here. However, like there's even this like layer outside of all of this stuff that I've talked about, because this is all the stuff that's happening within the dreams, like the mindscape of this main character that we're playing. But there is this non-dreamscape portion of the game as well. And I don't know exactly how much of this game or of this part that you will be playing in the game, but when your character can wake up, and did wake up for a little bit, and then that part, it's more like claymation mixed with like stuff obviously made out of fabric and other materials. That feels more like a diorama or something. It's one of the most creative games I think I've ever seen in my life. I talked about another game that did a very similar approach to this several months ago, another indie game called Asterism, I believe was the name of it, that also used a lot of mixed media like this. I think this one goes even deeper and takes it even farther. Obviously takes it into a very sinister direction and makes it very like creepy. And like just the idea too that the hands are always moving makes it extremely unsettling. So like if you are a fan of eerie, unsettling horror stuff, like this is definitely one you're going to be into. And like if you also are, crossing over into that idea of being someone that's a little bit of an art buff or just loves art in general, like myself, then like it's going to appeal even more to you. The very first few minutes of this game, I didn't know if I was going to like it. I was caught off guard a little from all of the movement, because there's so much movement going on the screen at all times. But once you start playing the game, or once I started, it felt very inviting as far as the gameplay. And I think that understanding the gameplay really, really pulled me in, because it brought something different than a typical card battler. And I think that really has something going for it. Like the idea of exhausting that energy to grab cards rather than using the energy to make your attacks and really your plays and everything adds a lot more variability and a lot more planning. The strange narrative bits in between the action also really helped to bring a little bit of levity between the constant like movement on the screen for me. As someone that gets distracted very easily, that does kind of help break things up a little bit. So I would definitely recommend this. Like if you were into psychology, for sure. If you're into art, absolutely check this game out. Aside from all those things, it also is just a really solid card battler. It's one I'm going to be playing for quite a while. And there is a bundle that you can get with Inscription. If you are someone that has always wanted to play Inscription, you've been waiting, pull the trigger on that one. I say that that a lot in these episodes lately. You can bundle this with Inscription, and I would recommend it because Inscription, probably my favorite indie game of all time. In fact, you know what? Let's solidify it. Inscription is my favorite indie game of all time. So the fact that you can get them both together just sweetens the pot.
Power up!
But hey, if you are enjoying this episode so far, do me a favor, throw us a like, a follow, a share for the episode, or share the podcast with folks who love indie games so we can get more of these game recommendations out there and support these indie game devs. And we've also got a YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdsloth where you can catch me playing some of the indie games that we talk about, including this one, Out of Hands. Or you can also check out our top 5 series for even more indie game recommendations, because we believe there is an indie game out there for everyone.
Combo!
So let's talk about some of the other games that I've been playing this week. And the one I'm going to talk about was another one that was sent to us by this time it was the publisher, but this is Little Rocket Lab. This is a cozy Stardew Valley-esque game, but instead of farming, it's about like harvesting scrap metal and materials so you can build automated machines. So you're playing as this girl named Morgan, or young woman named Morgan. You start as a little girl in the like preface, and then you come back to your childhood home where you grew up with you lived with your aunt And like, obviously there are some sad things I think that are very much alluded to. But anyway, you come back to your aunt's home where you spent time as a little girl. There was a rocket lab there. The family was working on building a rocket at one point. That lab is locked down and you can't get in. You don't know why. She just doesn't want to talk about it. But anyway, the town has kind of fallen a little bit on hard times. And like your aunt's place, which was at one time when you were little, just a very bustling kind of engineer haven lab thing, everything's really in despair. Like nothing really works anymore. So as you come back, you are kind of helping to scrap everything. Like you're doing different chores for your aunt. Like you get like quests and everything to do all this different stuff as part of like the tutorial. And then that is going to obviously expand into like the main game, which is really about revitalizing the town and also building a rocket. So you're resource gathering, you are doing research and development, you're engineering, and you have some cute companions to accompany you as well. There's also a lot of interaction with townspeople, with your aunt, with friends, creating and establishing relationships, friendships. All those things are being tracked in a journal. It is such a cute, fun, cozy little game. I don't gravitate towards games like this. I tried Stardew Valley for a little bit, and though it's like, okay, it's just not a game I'm interested in, which is kind of funny between the two of us when Joseph and I talk about games that are like concepts of like a cozy game or something, right? If it has the like tag like cozy or wholesome or story rich, Joseph's usually like, nope, out. No, thank you. I don't even want to bother. Stardew Valley is like those kind of games that like farming sim games and stuff like that are usually like that for me. Like I usually like any kind of crafting game, I usually just don't have an interest in it. But this one, I don't know what it is. Again, we didn't get paid for this. I wish. Little Rocket Lab, if you want to send me some money for an endorsement, like go ahead, I'll take it. Even just $1, I'll take $1. That's one more dollar than I had when I started. Anyways, there's something about this one that I think was so charming that I really had a good time. Like the time flew by as I was playing this. And I was thinking like, I usually will play an hour and some change of these games right at the beginning so that I can get a feel for it, understand like, is this something that I want to talk about on our podcast? And then if it is, I will download it to my Steam Deck so I can play it on the go and put more hours into it. So I did that. And like last night, I don't even know how long I played this game, but like this morning I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And then I saw what time I went to bed, which is like, guys, I'm a dad. I go to bed early. I went to bed so late last night because I was up playing this goddamn game. Anyway, I was scrapping everything I could with my little hammer, collecting so many resources. I've never played an automation game. I know that there's plenty out there. I guess the closest I ever came to was Power World, which had like a little bit of that into it, but I just that's one of those just didn't click with me a little bit. Like the novelty of the Pokemon thing sort of was there, and then I played a couple hours and then I was kind of over it. But the automation in this, and maybe it's because the tutorial of it is done so well because you were integrated into it very slowly so that you understand the core mechanics, pun slightly intended there, so well that you start to really see just all the possibilities. So like I'm building these machines, like I'm building the conveyor belts. And it's teaching you like, okay, you can go mine some ore and you can set up the little kiln here to turn the ore into, let's say, if we're doing steel, you can turn the iron ore into like steel bars. But then you can put a conveyor belt after that shoots that thing over into, I can't remember the name for this thing, but this one specific thing you can build that will turn that into like a steel plate that you need to create, let's say, more conveyor belts. So then you can have a conveyor belt after that that moves that steel plate into another machine that turns that into a conveyor belt, have that conveyor belt move that new piece that you just built over to like a little collection hub. So like you can just automate all those things, and like just that little bit, all of a sudden it starts clicking. You're like, oh my God, I can do everything. I could build everything with this. And like you just start getting all of these ideas. Like me, the first thing I thought of was like, I could build conveyor belts to basically just put all over this. And it's a fairly big map as far as like it might not be as big as Stardew Valley, but it's fairly big. I could make conveyor belts all over this place and literally just hop on one. And like, I don't have to move anymore. Like the conveyor belts could take me straight to where I need to go. Like I could make them go different places. And how fun would that be? Like, that's ridiculous. I could literally hop on a conveyor belt that takes me all the way to the university where I need to go to interact with certain people and do more research about different blueprints. And while it does that, I can go get a glass of water or something and come back. And then I've arrived at my destination. That is cool. When you go to the university, like you meet some folks there, one sort of integrate you into the town of like, hey, we need help here at the university, and the research we're going to do here is also going to help revitalize the town. So there's that aspect of it, and what they're doing on the flip side is helping you research new things that you can build. And when they do that, you get blueprints for new machines, new parts that you need to keep doing the work that you want to do, which eventually is build that rocket. One of those things that kind of leads you to that point, because I said it's in that lab and it's locked, you get this little robot companion that you have to fix up first. You have to do a lot of stuff to be able to fix him up, but his name's Pico. He's the best. Pico will help you sneak into the rocket base, the lab, unlock it. You go in, you see that it's been abandoned. The lab is in complete disrepair. So you're fixing up the lab, and eventually you're going to be wanting to build the rocket, and you're having to do this in secret. You don't want your aunt to find out because she doesn't want you in there. It is so cute. It's so much fun. It has so much personality to it. I can't believe I finally found a game like this that actually piqued my interest and sucked me in. And now I can't stop. Guys, I'm still trying to play Blueprints. Come on. You can't do this to me. You can't get me sucked into another one. Let me talk about this art a little bit, though, because there is a certain aspect of this art that I'm in love with. The main art of the game, I don't think is really anything to write home about. It's a little bit Stardew Valley-ish. It's not quite as pixelated as Stardew Valley, so I would say not as charming, but it looks good. It's cute, but everyone has these large illustrations like you would get in a visual novel. But those illustrations are gorgeous, and they very, very much like they came straight out of the Legend of Zelda, like Minish Cap era of things. Like if you think about the art designs and everything they did during that time period for all the Zelda games, the posters and the cover art advertisements, they had that very distinct style to it. It is that style of artwork, like verbatim, and it looks amazing and just completely endeared me even more to this game. So very excited to see. There is not a release date for the full game yet. So what I was given was like the beta copy. So I'm pretty deep in right now. Like I didn't know if this is like they're going to let you get, like, I don't know how far they're going to let me go in this thing, but I'm having a blast with it. So it is a lot of fun. And I would recommend if you are into like automation, engineering, Stardew Valley, this is one to put on your wish list. That is, again, Little Rocket Lab.
Final round!
Let's talk about some upcoming indie games that I'm excited about. The first up is Freeride. This comes out on May 1st. They say this is a game about you. Not me. It's a game about you. So for a quick description, it says, board a train to the spirit world in our oddball RPG where you make friends, use telekinesis, find secrets, consume ice cream, and chart your own path. Each character is uniquely troubled, and in helping them find their way, you might find yourself too. I know that this game is supposed to be very like personality type based and like extremely choices matter from what I understand from reading about it and from the game trailers and everything. One, the art and the visual style of this game are really fun. The game looks super whimsical, but it also gives me a little bit of an air of like Spiritfarer to it as well, with the types of interactions and everything that you're having. It just seems like it's going to be kind of an emotions heavy sort of game, but also with a little bit of that idea of whimsy to it too. But I mean, that was a lot of what Spiritfarer was like, just without like, all the management and building maybe in this game. But it seems like your personality and the choices that you make, and what's weird, and I don't know what they mean by this exactly, they say both your conscious and your subconscious decisions will impact the game. I have no idea how that works, what they mean by the unconscious. I don't know how you're telling what unconscious decisions I'm making. Like maybe it's like, how long you hesitate on something will change some aspect of how a character reacts to you. I don't know. If that's the case, that's genius and I love it. But because of that kind of stuff, like I am 100% intrigued by this, and I just can't wait to try it out and see how it goes. There's supposed to be an extreme amount of branching as far as how all the different individual relationships can go with different characters, befriending or becoming enemies with, and all kinds of stuff. Like things can change dramatically every time you play it. So I'm guessing that it's somewhat short form as far as a story, but it encourages multiple playthroughs. So I'm guessing a lot of stuff changes. I don't know that means it's a roguelike. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm 100% interested. Can't wait for it to come out so I can understand more. The next one I want to talk about is Pup Champs, which comes out May 23rd. I know this one is still probably a bit farther away, but it just looks adorable. This is a tactical puzzle game about leading a soccer team of cute puppies. You solve puzzles, score goals, and become the champs. So it's just a little cartoony kind of anthropomorphic soccer team of puppies. And really, it's a puzzle game. It reminds me a little bit of a Ranger. If anyone played that one, that came out, I think it was sometime last year, but like way more smaller scale, like lots of smaller puzzles. But like it just looks like one of those games that you would buy for like a mobile platform, like play on your Steam Deck or something, or your Nintendo Switch, and pick up and play for a little bit. And like it just absolutely looks perfect for that. And I love those types of games. Those games specifically play a very important role in my life as a dad who doesn't always have time to sit down and play a game that requires hours and hours and hours of attention. Like I can't sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to play Elden Ring all the way through. There's just no way. But I could sit down and be like, hey, I can play a couple levels of Pup Champ, or I can do, a run or two of Blue Prince, which, guys, let's be honest, man, I'm going to be playing that for the rest of my life. I haven't gotten to room 46 yet. I feel like I'm so close. I got a lever that said I unlocked the west antechamber. But I haven't made it back to the west side of that antechamber to get in there and see. But I got that. I've also been to the tomb underground, which I know there's got to be something important there. I'm going to go crazy. Like, I feel like every time I play this game, I feel like I look like the Charlie Day meme from Always Sunny, which is how I typically live my life. If you picture that guy, but with blueprints and just indie games in general, that's me. That's what I look like. I've even been told I look like him in some capacity.
Game over.
If you had a good time listening to this episode, stick around for the bumper to learn how you can help support the show and all the other things we do here at Sloth Creative. You can also check the show notes for our link tree that'll help take you to our social media, our Discord, our subreddit, our merch store, and tons of other cool stuff. Get in touch with us. Let us know what indie games you're playing, and help us elevate these games so we can help support indie developers. But that's game over for me. My name is Chris, and I will continue on the next episode.
Continue.
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth for indie game let's plays and recommendations. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/nerdsloth, where you can select a pledge and receive access to hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything at Sloth Creative. If you're an indie game developer and would like us to review your game or explore other opportunities, send an email to nerdslothcreative@gmail.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade. Thanks for listening, and keep supporting indie game devs.